Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for always coming around to check on me. I'm back with another mind-blowing video. How you doing? How you coping? Hope you're good. Hope you're fine. In today's video, I'm taking you the process of cutting and sewing this beautiful crop shade top from start to finish. Have you ever thought of making this crop shade top for yourself? Have you covered? Watch me as I'm taking you the process of cutting and sewing from start to finish. And for my returning subscriber, I value you so much. And if you are new here, do not fail to turn on your notification bell after subscribing so that you get to notify each time I upload a new video. And without wasting time, let's get into the video. I have a plain pattern paper here with me. Sorry, we are going to draw it first on a pattern paper. Reason is because the leftover fabric that is remaining is not too much, so I'm trying to manage what I have. Last week we posted a tutorial of how to make the escape part of it. I hope you check it out if you haven't done it before. I've from the side seam of my paper, I go in by 3 inch, and that will be a space for my button. And on the top of my paper, I come down by 1 inch. That is my starting line as well as my shoulder line. And from that shoulder line or the starting line, I'm marking my bust point, which is 10, my waist 16, and the length for this top, I'm marking 20 inch. Sorry, I'm marking 19 plus 1 inch for stitching allowance, which is 20. I mark the same thing at the side, and at this edge I also repeat the same mark so that I will have a straight line. And after that, I'm labeling for the sake of this tutorial. This is the bust point, the waist point, the full length, and the allowance. Okay, and at this bust point, I'm going up by 2 inch. I'm going up by 2 inch, and that is my chest line. Okay, so at this chest line, I'm placing my bust circumference, okay, plus 1 inch for east and 1.5 inch for sewing allowance. I also divide my waist into 4 plus 1 inch for east and 1.5 inch for sewing allowance. So I'm connecting my markings together. For my shoulder is 15. Half of 15 is 7.5. I add 1 inch for it, which is 16. So 16 divided into 2 is 8. I'm marking 8 at the shoulder line. I also mark 8 at the chest line, and I connect it on a straight line. At this shoulder line, I'm coming down by 1 inch. That is my shoulder slope. So I connect it back to this neckline. So for the width of my neckline, I'm going to make use of 3 inch for the width. Then for the depth of my back neck, I'm making use of 1 inch. You can use 1.5 inch, but I don't really want it open. I don't really want the shirt neck to be open. I also add ½ inch for stitching allowance at this shoulder slope line. I'm placing my tape right now from this shoulder slope line. I'm bending my tape like this to find the midpoint, and when I get the midpoint, I mark. I will connect it with a curve like this back to the chest line, and this is my back armhole. I label it B so that I will not get confused for the sake of this tutorial. I also bend inward. This is my button space allowance inward in order to cut out my piece, and I'm cutting it out. For the depth of my front neck, I make use of 2.5. Yes, make use of 2.5 or 2 inch. Make use of 2.5. I'm cutting out my back neckline. So initially I wanted to use it first to cut out my back piece, but from the look of things I noticed that my material is I'm really running out of material. So, and knowing fully well that the front piece are wider than that of the back piece, so I'm going to use it to cut my front piece face. That's why I open up the button space. The button is always in the front. Don't worry about the front neckline. I'm going to show you what to do next. I will show you, but let's just use it to cut first front piece, because the back will be very simple and the back is not too much. If you check very well, my pattern paper, that place short, so I add up in my fabric to complement with the shortage. So I'm now cutting it this way. After this, I'm going to use that my main piece to cut the other side of my front piece. It will serve as a pattern to get the other side of my front piece. And guys, make sure you place it right side facing. Okay, it's very important you do that, right side facing each other before you cut it out. So I'm cutting exactly what I see, or I'm cutting exactly what I have. When I'm done with this, look at what we have. So I'm going to also take note of the space for the button, which is 3 inch, because we want to trim out our front neckline. We want to trim it out now. So I'm going to come down by 1 inch, and I connect it with a curve like this. I'm going to cut it out, connect it with a curve like this. You can go for 2.5 neckline. I think the highest you should go is 3 inch. Anything wider than 3 inch will not give you shaped neckline. Okay, pin it, and this are my front piece. So moving on to the back piece, I'm going to fold in. This time around, we'll not cut this place open, because this is the back piece and our back piece needs to be on fold. It's only the front of the shade that is always open. So I fold in the button space for the allowance, and also I'm going to fold in my material into two like this. My material is on fold. I'm cutting out my back piece right now. So after cutting out the back piece, this is what we look like. This is what we have. I actually use my main piece as a pattern to get my lining. Yes, I actually use it to get my lining, and look at it. I cut exactly what I have, but we are going to trim it off later. For the lining, though we added 1 inch for stitching allowance, I've decided to remove 1.5 inch because I don't want this shade to be too long. So I'm going to cut out 1.5 inch away from my main. Sorry, I'm going to cut out 1.5 inch from my lining. So I will take it to my machine. I will stitch it first at the hem line by 1/2 inch. Don't mind the way I chalk it out. I'm going to stitch with only 1/2 inch. Okay. I've done stitching on my 3-piece. Now I'm going to pull it upward like this in a way that the neckline will align. Then I will stitch the side. Yes. See, I'm trying to trim out this pointy edge so that it will come out very pointy. When I flip it to the right side, look at what we have. Yes, the essence of removing this 1.5 inch from the lining is so that the lining can stay inside instead of showing outside. Okay. And I've also attached my shoulder. What I did is I placed my main piece right side of my shoulder, facing the right side of the back piece, right side of my front piece facing the right side of my back piece. I stitch it down by 1/2 inch. After that, I'm trying to match the seam allowance, that of the lining and the main piece. And when I join them together, match it together, I'm going to top stitch on it. I've also go ahead to iron down my button space allowance. I iron it 2 times. So if you like, you can choose to run a clean stitch on it, but for me, I will not stitch it down. There's this pattern I always see in main shade, that this front the button space allowance is not always, especially in ready-made one, is not always sewn. So I'm going for that pattern. That is the style I'm going for. So I will not stitch that place down. I'm going to show you what we are going to do later. Now we want to cut our sleeve. I'm simply coming down by 4 inch and I'm doing a kind of slanted S. Dividing my round arm by 2, I place it and I add I add 2 inch for stitching allowance. I also divide my round armhole into 2. My round armhole into 2. I'm adding 1.5 inch for stitching allowance. Sorry, the 2 inch is too much because on our dress we added 1.5 inch. So for the sleeve, I'm also going to add 1.5 inch. After that, I connect the point and I'm cutting it out. I'm going to also use this first one as a pattern to get the other side of my sleeve, and I will also use it to get my lining. I will also turn it with lining. So after after cutting, when cutting please place it right side facing. It's very important. Place it right side facing. If you open it up like this, let it be right side facing. So I'm cutting it out now. So I've also go ahead to cut my lining, placing it like this. I've done cutting my lining. I also short for the lining. I make sure that my lining is shorter than my main sleeve by 1 inch. I make sure it's shorter than my lining by 1 inch at the hem line. So I stitch at the hem line. I also flip it upward and stitch the side. I will stitch the side seam. It's only this armhole cuff that will be open. Done doing that, I'm going to flip it so that you see what we have. So I'm flipping it now so that you see what we have. You see, by so doing, the lining is staying inside. So I'm going to take it to my machine and top stitch on it. After top stitching, if there is any excess, please trim it out the way I do. It's very important you do that. And I'm going back to check my armhole if it's accurate, because I don't really want it tight on me. I have to trim about 1/2 inch away from it. After trimming that, I trim again my front armhole. Take note, guys. I trim again my front armhole. I raise it up and trim only my front armhole. The front of our armhole is supposed to be deeper than that of the back. Okay, and when I get that, I'm kind of measuring my sleeve to get the midpoint of my sleeve. When I get the midpoint, I'm notching it like this. And from the shoulder, I'm also going to find out the midpoint of my shoulder. Of course, that joining that we have is the midpoint. So I'm going to take it and stitch it like this. I will stitch it like this all around. Stitch it like this. I'm done doing that. Guys, look at what we have. Sorry, my black lining was not much, so I have to use this brown one. It does not really matter because it's going to be inside. It's not going to show. Yes, the next thing I'm going to do is to mark my normal measurement now. I'm going to take my measurement now. I'm marking half of my bust circumference. When I get what I want, I'm also dividing the remaining measurement. I'm dividing the remaining measurement into 2. I divide it again into 2 like this. I place one this side. I will also place that same measurement on the other side. That will help me to shape out my dress. I'm going to take it to my machine, starting from the sleeve measurement. For the sleeve, I'm going to mark it. Starting from the sleeve measurement, I'm going to stitch it down. When I'm done stitching, guys, look at what we have. It's looking beautiful already. It's very beautiful already. So moving on to our collar, I'm simply trimming that place out because that is the excess we have there. So I'm going to measure it. This part is out. I'm going to measure what we have. Please take your time and measure it again. You can measure it up to 2 or 3 times to be sure of what you are doing. Take your time and measure it very well. what I have is about 16 inch. I'm going to measure it again. Guys, try and get the accurate measurement on this round sleeve, because that will help you to cut your shirt collar. What I still have there is still 16, so I'm sure of this 16. I'm going to use this collar stay. I'm drafting on this collar stay. I mark my starting point. From this starting point, I place the edge of my tape touching the 16 inch. I fold it like this. Whatever I have, which is 8, I place it on that line and mark. Okay, and I'm placing it again and mark that same measurement so that we'll have a straight line. So for the collar stand, I'm taking 1 inch and I'm also finding the midpoint. As you have seen, this 1 inch, I'm simply connecting it to the midpoint of this line. So at this curve side, this side that I'm curving, starting from there, I'm marking 1 inch. That is the length of my collar stand. I'm marking 1 inch, and after that I'm connecting it like this with the curve. For the collar itself, I'm taking one and a half inch. I'm taking 1.5 inch. It's not up to 2 inch. I'm taking 1.5 inch all round, and I'm also connecting it. I'm also connecting it like this with a curve. So there is this part in the shirt that is always pointy or curve. This is the up of the collar and this is the down. Okay, at that point I come in by 1 inch. You can make it 1.5 inch like this. So I simply curve it this way. I have a full tutorial on how to cut a collar, detail one. In case you don't really understand what I'm doing here, you can check that one out. So I'm actually labeling it so that I will know how to join it. So this arrow I'm putting in, I'm simply indicating it that this side will be joined to this side. This arrow is going to help me. Just like this, our collar is ready. It's very simple. This is our collar stand and the collar itself. I'm also cutting it like this. I separate it, that's why I mark it. So when I'm stitching it down, this arrow will be joined to this side of the arrow. I hope that makes sense. This curvy side that we curve is where I'm trimming it off in the collar stand. I don't want mine to be pointy, so I'm going to place it on top of my fabric and cut out. I'm going to cut it out, leaving, let me iron it first. I'm going to iron it on top of this material face. Then I will add ½ inch all round before I cut it off. Okay, you can decide to measure it like this if you are not really sure, but for me, I'm only doing this for the sake of this tutorial. You can measure it like this if you are not sure. Only ½ inch all round So after that, I'm going to cut it out. Guys, what I'm cutting out now, we need 2 pieces of it. So when I get the first part of it, I'm going to use it as a pattern to cut another one. Okay, and this time around, what I'm trying to do here is I'm placing it right side facing, because I'm using it to cut my facing now. I'm placing it right side facing each other. Then I'm going to cut it out exactly what we have. This is for the collar stand. I'm also going to repeat the same process with my collar itself. Okay, right side facing each other, because that is how we are going to sew it. So I'm cutting my collar now. And this is what we have. I'm going to take it to my machine. You see this side that we put arrow for the collar, not the collar stand. I'm not going to stitch that part, but starting from the down of it, I'm going to stitch it all around as shown. After stitching it, guys, I'm simply trimming it like this, so that it's optional, so that it will be, I'm trimming it off like this so that it will not come out very buggy. Flip it to the right side. I've done doing that. I've also ironed the part flat. I've ironed my seam allowance flat. I'm folding it into two to find the midpoint. When I get the midpoint of it, I also fold my collar stand into two. I notch the midpoint. The lining too, I'm also going to mark the midpoint in the lining like this. What I want you to take note is this part that have paper stay is going to face the part too that has paper stay. I hope that makes sense. So I'm placing the midpoint, facing the midpoint. Look at it. The side that has paper stay is also facing the side that is having paper stay. So I'm going to stitch it all around by that same allowance that we leave, that 1/2 inch. So when we done stitching, guys, look at what we have here. I did not stitch exactly. I stitch and stop at the midpoint of it. Yes, at the midpoint of it like this. That is where my stitch stop. That is where my stitch stop. That midpoint. And after then, I'm going to flip it like this. You see, our collar is almost ready. So I'm going to iron it very well. I'm going to iron this part very well. After ironing it, this part that has a paper stay, I'm folding in that 1/2 inch that we left, that allowance. I'm folding it inward and iron it down. Then this edge, try and push in the edge inward and iron it flat. I bend it into two. I find the midpoint. I also find the midpoint of my shades, the midpoint of this neckline. I'm also going to notch it. Yes, I'm going to place it this way and stitch it all around, following the direction of that 1/2 inch we added. I've stitched it all around. You see, this is the back side of it. It's looking beautiful, very beautiful. And for the front, you see this part that I said fold in, fold the 1/2 inch in. And guys, when stitching, stitch it to the back side of your shades. I'm now flipping it to the right side and top stitch. After that, I'm going to take this shade to a place where I will install the buttonhole. And after installing the buttonhole, guys, you can see that the fold cannot pull off. The fold, this button space fold cannot pull off because it is being stitched down by the buttonhole and the button itself. So this is the final look of the dress. It's looking very beautiful. Let me know in the comment section if you'd like to try one for yourself, and also let me know if this video is helpful. Do not forget to share and like my video so that more people can get to see it. Till I see you in my next video. Bye.